Welcome to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge, your front row seat to the boldest ideas and smartest strategies in the marketing game. Your host is Reed Hansen, Chief Growth Officer at MarketSurge.
Hello and welcome to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge. Today's guest is Jared Nygren, a systems thinker, a SaaS builder, and the founder behind one of the most quietly powerful tools reshaping how businesses approve, pay, and Jared is the creator of Approve.io, a lightweight approval and payment platform built for real-world teams who are tired of chasing signatures, getting ghosted, or watching deals stall because no one knows who's supposed to say yes. Approve.io makes approvals and payouts clear, trackable, and done, without all the bloated tools or confusing processes. Before launching Approve.io, Jared spent over a decade solving operational problems inside fast-moving startups and enterprise environments. That's where he first saw the chaos firsthand, the endless bottlenecks, the broken workflows, the who's in charge of this moments, and decided to build something that just works. In today's episode, we'll talk about how Jared went from problem to product, why simplicity is a power feature, and what most founders get wrong about operational flow. Jared, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Reed. Excited to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. And also a big part of this story is Jared's a personal friend of mine and the original founder and owner of MarketSurge, and passed the baton to myself and team. And so really excited for that insight as well. Now, love to jump in on your current venture, Approve.io. Tell us a little bit about the problem you identified and are trying to solve, and what pushed you to jump into this.
Yeah, so I'll start with kind of a brief overview of what the challenge is that we're solving. So customer retention is a big problem in the home service industry. So that the average annual customer retention rate in pest control is right around 78%, which means, roughly 1 in 5 customers are canceling each year. So it's a huge problem to solve. A minor change in your retention rate can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the size of your company. So that's the problem that we're going after, and we do that through a couple of key things. So the first is onboarding. So when a customer comes on, making sure that they understand what they're agreeing to. So in home services, when you've got reoccurring services, it's very, very common, especially in door-to-door sales, for customers to not have a full grasp of what they're signing up for. So getting off on the wrong foot's a huge issue. The next is service quality. And so we help service teams get aligned on key metrics for the company. So we track lots of different metrics that a technician will do. We mainly focus with pest control companies right now, but you can think of things like average time on site, how many reservices have they had, how many Google reviews did that technician get, all sorts of, we have 15, 20 different metrics that you can track these technicians on and leaderboard them, really to drive that performance and get that feedback loop going to the technicians so they can know where they can improve. And then the last piece of that is getting that feedback from the customer. So we help collect reviews, reward technicians with digital tipping, all of this designed to help customer retention. And so we've seen some great results so far with some of the companies that we're working with, where they're seeing upwards of 18% customer retention increasing. So it's been a fun ride.
That's fantastic. Well, so here's a question. Obviously a lot of people in the audience are contemplating startups or in the middle of startups trying to refine the product. Where did you come to the knowledge that this was such an issue? Like how did you become acquainted with this industry so well and decided to throw a lot of effort and your time on it?
Yeah, so it's definitely getting in the game, right? Like the once we started, the problem and the issue and what we're solving has become so much more clear. So when we first got into the game, it was really when I was with MarketSurge. We had a couple of pest control accounts that started helping us see really some solutions that they were looking for some of their problems, which was directly connected with staff performance and finding ways to get their technicians to do better work to keep their customers happier. And we took an entry into the market through that, and it's expanded a lot since then. So I think there's a couple of different ways to get into entrepreneurship. One is kind of the MBA path, where you analyze the market from a top-down approach. You find what you think is a problem, make sure the market's big enough. The other, I think, is the kind of the scrappy approach from bottoms up, where you're looking for a single customer who's got a problem, and it's very likely that someone else has got that problem, and you start solving and building from there. And I think that's kind of the approach Approve has taken.
Interesting. That is another interesting aspect that you mentioned, that you learned while at your previous startup, MarketSurge, about this problem, and that helped you transition into your current startup. And so, like, it was actually kind of on the job that you learned it, and by observing, questioning, and ultimately diving in. Now, you are a serial entrepreneur. Even before MarketSurge, you had startups. What drives you to do that? What's your what's the impetus there? Is it just a personality type, short attention span?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've always kind of always been attracted to it. I think it's been in the family, right? My dad was an entrepreneur, his dad was an entrepreneur, so I think I've been surrounded by it, but always been drawn to it. I think the no cap potential is really inspiring, and I think there's a lot of fulfillment that I just haven't been able to find working in a larger company.
Interesting. And you have worked in a larger company. What would you say are some of the things you like and don't like about the two? So.
Yes. Yeah, the large corporations are awesome in many ways, right? I think there's a much easier ability to shut it off once you're out of work. I think you can really live a really great life with a corporate career. But I think you miss out on, if it's in your blood to build and create something. I think it feels a little bit captivating, I think. And so I think being an entrepreneur, you get to go out there and build what you've dreamed about. But it does come with some drawbacks, right? You can't just turn it off. It's the puck ends with you, and it's stressful often,
Yeah.
right? So you're constantly trying to figure things out, reinvent, and it can really creep into your personal life and dominate if you're not watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you had several startups, but knowing you well, I know you've picked up skills along the way. What are some of the similar between these different stops and companies you've started? What are some of the similar skills that you think are really important that an entrepreneur should have, that's really benefiting you now in Approve?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've learned about entrepreneurship through my whole journey with it is sell before you build. I think that can really help you feel out the demand before trying to build something and see if people want it. I think there's many different ways into entrepreneurship. One of the ones that's commonly taught in academia is the lean startup method, which is great. But I think sometimes you can get too caught in the weeds of creating a hypothesis and trying to prove it wrong. I think there's definitely a path into entrepreneurship that way. But if you just simplify it down to sell something and just try and deliver it, I think that is really what entrepreneurship is. If you can sell it, someone's willing to pay for it, and you can build it, you can make a company.
Now, you're not a developer per se, Jared. And when you say build, like, you're outsourcing that. Now, how have you learned? How do you, as a non-engineer, non-computer developer, how have you managed that process?
Yeah. So I think from the start, building with tools that you feel comfortable with. So whether that's low code or white label, I think if you're wanting to be in the software space, that's a great way to get dip your toes in and get a feel for running a software as a service company. When you start building your platform from scratch, I think it's very difficult to be a solo founder that's not technical and try and bring on employees or contractors to build it. So I have a co-founder who is a
Oh,
developer,
right. Okay.
and that is huge.
Yeah.
I don't think I would not have been possible without someone who's got skin in the game, who's a developer and can lead that side of things.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And like, you mentioned the aspect of not he's not just a mercenary or a offshore technical resource. He's got some skin in the game, and yeah, that's very helpful. Do you see you also interact with a lot of other entrepreneurs? I've met a lot of them through you, and you do you see a mistake that entrepreneurs often make, or like certain limitations that you see they're often up against? And I can think of a few examples, but anything come to mind right off the bat when people are starting their journey there?
Yeah, cash flow is a big one, right?
Okay.
So if you underestimate your cash flow, I think that's probably one of the number one ways people fail, right? They don't properly calculate how long it's going to take to get a business that's paying them. So one way to really ease out of that is you don't quit your job, or you don't whatever you're doing until your income's equaled out. And I've pretty much followed that with every venture I've taken, that there's really either the revenue or the income has replaced what I was making, or there's really, really strong signals where it doesn't really feel like you're taking a jump at that point. I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong, or feeling like they're building something people want without really having tried to sell it.
Yeah, that's a excellent point. Can I ask you? Let's go talk a little bit about Approve and your product. You have to make a lot of decisions. I know it's a lot of work to develop a product, and you probably have a lot more ideas than you have time or resources to build. How do you prioritize these? I think you've kind of given us a preview of how you make decisions around what, but like how have you prioritized?
That is definitely a golden question. I still don't think we have it right. It's tough. It is really tough because especially when you get started, you when you really start getting in the weeds with 10, 20, 30 clients, you start getting lots of amazing product feedback,
Mm.
and you start seeing all the directions you could go, and it does become really, really difficult to know where to prioritize, because very, very quickly, especially if you have a co-founder that's on the development side and you're leading the direction of the product, you'll make their lives miserable if you keep trying to throw in different features and products. And I think you have to keep it very tight. And I think we're still learning this. I don't think I have the golden ticket answer on how to prioritize the best, but from what I believe, you've got to keep your core features very tight. You've got to deliver really, really well and stick in that route for quite some time until you have enough revenue to justify going outside of that. And that's a tough thing. You have to say no to a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Now, having started or worked with white label platforms, so existing platforms that you've rebranded, and low code solutions, and building from scratch, building full stack applications. Do you so you've run the whole gamut. Now, where do you make decisions about like buy or integrate versus build? Like how do you balance that in your mind? Do you have a rule of thumb, or have you had experiences that give you a good instinct for it?
Yeah, that's a good question. My my instinct would be to avoid building initially if
Okay.
you can.
Mhm.
And once you demonstrate that, okay, this is a very strong direction, then it might make sense to build it to give yourself a little more flexibility on customizing it, making it unique. But I would always lean towards what's the fastest, cheapest way we can get this out there and get a feel for the demand.
Okay. Okay. Um, Now, as like a non-engineer, how would you evaluate the quality of the product that's being built? How do you keep your technical team sharp and making sure that this is really top tier? I mean, is it just a lot of testing and a lot of feedback, or do you have other measures to help steer them?
Yeah, I mean, in a larger organization, you've got QA quality
Mhm.
assurance testers, right?
Right.
They're every before anything's pushed, they're testing everything, making sure that it's not gonna affect some other part of the platform. When it's a scrappy team, that's me, right? I'm the QA guy. I'm going through and trying to test things as quickly and as fast as we can. But we're it's a fast pace when you got things you're trying to build quickly. You don't have a lot of resources. Everyone's got to wear those hats of looking for issues, and I think where we've been able to I think overcome some of those challenges of being small is we're very quick to respond to issues.
Mhm.
So if there is a customer says, "Hey, this isn't working," we're on it immediately versus having to route it up through customer support to a senior dev. I mean, it's coming right to the people who built it, right? So we're constantly monitoring that very close.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Well, let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk about the sales and marketing part of entrepreneurship. You explained how you got initial customers. It was a problem that they had described, and so you had built it for them. But the next step is, how do you take it to customers 2, 3, 4, and then like 500 and 1,000? What are the steps at the various growth stages for you to
Yeah.
sell and market effectively?
Yeah. So for us, customer 2, 3, 4, up to 10 was we used cold email
Okay,
and we used cold LinkedIn outreach.
nice.
So used instantly and we used a tool called Dripify. And it's not, I think you can get really great at that using signals and trying to really reach the right people. Our approach probably wasn't the sharpest, but it worked enough, right? So we brought in our first, I'd say 10 accounts through that. And then from there, we really went into product mode. And I would say we're just coming out of that phase. So the rest of our accounts were all word of mouth,
Mm.
really getting a feel for what people want, what the product needs to be. And then there's kind of a couple phases. You first build the core features, it's functional, but there's a lot of things you're still doing in the background. When you onboard an account, it's not seamless. You got to do a lot of manual things, and that's okay. To the customer, it looks like it's seamless, but from a scalability standpoint, you're not there, right? So that's kind of the next phase is now we've got to get this all packaged together. We know what it is. We've got the product right. Let's get it scalable, and then I think you can really push down the pedal on getting sales.
That's awesome. And even as you are describing the process of building a tech company, I do think what you're describing is pretty relevant for a service company that's trying to deliver something kind of unique or high end. I think a lot of those principles hold true that, you've got to get like a minimum viable product out there, and then take some feedback in, and then recalibrate, and then focus on like major outreach. And your early customers are going to be word of mouth. I think that's how it will work. Have you utilized giving people free licenses or demo accounts? Is that frequently, because like a lot of people starting their business are trying to get reviews or feedback, and they give away free things. How do you think about that?
We haven't done that. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad
Mm,
strategy. I really like the level of validation that you get when someone gives you money,
mm,
right? I think that says a lot about what they feel. Even if, if someone's giving you money and your product isn't that great, that means there's real demand there. They're willing to deal with something that's not perfect because the pain is that bad.
mm.
But I think when you give someone a free account, it's harder to tell, right? You have to really look, okay, are they using it? And then are you convincing them to use it often, trying to get them back in there? I mean, I think when someone's paying money, they're not going to keep paying it if they're not using it. So it's just a really clear way to see whether someone wants it.
So let's talk a little bit about the future of the product. Like obviously, as a you can't wear all the hats forever and still be effective and grow at a similar rate. What roles do you think you'll keep, and what roles do you think you might hire additional staff, and what others might you outsource? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll always be. We want to keep it as lean as
Okay.
possible, and I think with in the new world of AI, there's a lot of amazing opportunities to do that. Right, I think we're in a really cool time to be an entrepreneur because there's opportunities that were just unprecedented before. So I think our next role is bringing on one more additional
Mm,
developer, CMO, and then a sales VP. And I think we've got a pretty strong team.
fantastic. Yeah, that's no, that's great. And um, do you do you think you have like you've identified a few key problems. Do you think you'll continue to expand beyond that to service other problems for these service businesses, or do you think that you would just like to stay pretty focused on these additional problems and the solution you have, and grow that?
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good question. I think we have definitely outlined a lot of growth opportunities from a product standpoint. So we've got a big pipeline of where we could go. Um, I think for now our goal is to keep with our core and scale that because at some point you've got to get out of product and really start scaling to
Yeah,
grow.
yeah. No, that does make sense. Well, I want to give you a little chance to talk more about Approve. Your business is doing really well, and like you've described, what is your pitch to potential clients? What if they come to you cold and maybe not totally aware of this problem? Like for some, it might be a problem they don't realize they're having. How would you describe that and show them why they might need to use Approve?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to pointed
Okay.
questions, right? So asking, do you have anything to measure your technicians
Mm,
and understanding what tools or things they have in place there. A lot of pest control companies don't have robust tools to measure their technicians across 10, 15, 20 metrics, leaderboard them, set automated rewards. I mean, that's a very um, uh, newer, advanced thing to be able to do, right? I think there's tools you can piece together to do it, but to have a system that does it all in one, I think is pretty powerful for a pest control company. Um, the other thing is, what are you using to verify your contracts or what is known in the industry as a welcome
mm,
call? Are you using anything for your welcome calls? And a lot of companies are using, a Google form
mm.
or a paper form, and there's just not a great way to really know if the customer was on board with what they agreed to. So, I think on the outside of that problem, it seems a little, it's hard to see that pain, but when you get into the industry, especially door to door knockers, it's a big problem because you have a customer saying, I did not agree to that. and now it's between what the customer said and the sales rep said on the door. And so being able to validate that with clear video, audio evidence is a really big deal.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I am not a pest control expert, but I follow what you're saying. It seems like, I should be evaluating this. I need to defend my brand reputation and deliver high quality service, hold the technicians accountable. And when they're off away at another location, there's no way to monitor unless I actually take some steps. So that's great. So Jared, just as we wrap up, where can people find more about Approve, and where can they reach you if they have questions?
Yeah, so approve.io, apruv.io is our website. You can book a demo. It'll probably be me or someone from our team. That's a great place to reach us, or my email, jared.n@approve.io. I'm always happy to chat and connect with anyone in the industry.
Well, fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us, Jared. And we talk frequently, and I've appreciated all your insight on entrepreneurship and marketing technology. We look forward to seeing big things out of Approve and continue to work together.
Yeah, thanks, Reed. Same to you.
Thanks.
Want to stay ahead of what's actually working in marketing right now? Head over to MarketSurge.io and see how we're helping businesses grow smarter, faster, and louder. That's MarketSurge.io, because your next breakthrough shouldn't be a guess.